Week 6 of the 2024-25 NBA season is over, which means it's time to run it back. This is Run It Back NBA Week in Review. I'm Jose Salviati, editor at thebeachbasket.net, and this is the show where we recap the week that was in the NBA and then highlight the marquee matchup for the week to come. We start like we always do with the only objective overall top 10 NBA power rankings anywhere. You can read more about how we get to these rankings and see the entire list at thebeachbasket.net. Let's take a look at the top 10 at the conclusion of week number 5. Jumping up to number 10 this week are the Memphis Grizzlies. They were perfect at 3-0, which was enough to move them to number 10 in week number 6. Dropping one spot to number 9 are the Denver Nuggets. They won one and lost one in week 6. The LA Clippers, still without Kawhi Leonard, moved up one spot to number 8 after a 2-2 week. The Phoenix Suns are either hot or cold, it seems. They were 2-1 in week number 6 and are getting healthy-ish. They dropped 2 spots to number 7 this week. The Golden State Warriors were riding high until they weren't. The Dubs hit a road bump this week, going 0-3, which dropped them 4 spots to number 6. The Orlando Magic were another perfect team in week number 6. They were 3-0 and moved up 2 spots to number 5. Another perfect team was the Houston Rockets. The Hungry Rockets were 2-0 and moved up 2 spots to earn the number 4 spot this week. Now, to be outdone, the Boston Celtics were also perfect in week number 6. They were 3-0, which was enough to keep them at number 3 for the second week in a row. The best team in the West are the Oklahoma City Thunder. They won all 3 of their games in week 6 and moved up 2 spots to number 2. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they had a bad week. Their first of the season. They were 1-2, but that 17-3 overall record gave them enough points to stay at number 1 for the 3rd week in a row. That's the objective top 10 list for week number 6. If you want to see where all 30 teams land this week, please visit thebeachbasket.net. Now let's shift our focus to the players. These are the best to do it by average in week number 6 of the 2024-25 NBA season. These are the best by average in shooting, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals, points, and game score in week 6. Giannis Antetokounmpo is taking the struggling Milwaukee Bucks on his back. In week 6, he played 1 game and scored 42 points, which was enough to lead everyone in that category. Teammate Damian Lillard led the association with 6.5 3-point shots made in week 6, while Giannis was the overall leader in total field goals made by average with 15. Isaiah Hartenstein has been really good for the OKC Thunder. He led everyone with 14 rebounds averaged over his 3 games played. Moussa Diabate of the Charlotte Hornets played 4 games and pulled down 5.5 offensive rebounds to lead the NBA in what I think is one of the most unsung but important categories. You got to be a dog to go after those offensive rebounds, and Moussa was the best at it this week. Karl Anthony Towns and Isaiah Hartenstein both played 3 games and averaged 11.7 defensive rebounds to lead everyone after week 6. Trae Young, for the second week in a row, was the best assist man by average. He played 4 games and handed out 13.5 assists. Walker Kessler was big for the struggling Utah Jazz. He averaged 3.3 blocks per game over his 3 games played to lead the association. The best thief plays in Houston. That's Amen Thompson. His 3.5 steals averaged over his 2 games played led the NBA. And finally, the top game score goes to Giannis Antetokounmpo with an impressive score of 38. Now, as we look ahead to week 7, the marquee matchup is in the Eastern Conference. Now, we start counting our weeks on Sunday. I know some folks start on Monday. It makes sense to me to start on Sunday, so that's what we do. The next game, marquee game, is on Sunday, December 1st, when the Cavaliers host the world champion Boston Celtics. It's a pretty big game for a lot of different reasons. Do the Celtics remind the Cavs again that the best team in the East plays in Boston? Or do the Cavaliers right the ship after a losing week with a big win at home? This is a pretty big statement game for Cleveland, and they need the early season W against the Celtics. Let's see if they get it. Finally, we're going to end with a look ahead by asking the quick wit AI chatbot what it sees as a key question or concern as we move into week number 7. This week, it said that key concerns revolve around player injuries with team performance consistency. With several teams struggling to find their rhythm, questions about coaching strategies and player rotations were prominent. So at the end of the day, it's, again, calling up the issue of injury. And this has been a prevailing thought pretty much since this season began and over the last few seasons. Now, focus is certainly on the 76ers, who have been without Paul George, been without Joel Embiid, and their record shows it. And we've discussed that a little earlier, a few weeks back on this show. But looking at the injury report on the day we're recording this show, we see a staggering 4 teams with 5 players out. Now, these aren't all marquee players, but that's a significant amount of players out. The Pacers, the Clippers, the Pelicans, and the Thunder all go to battle today with 5 of their rotational players out. The Nets, they play with 6 players listed as out in the injury report. And there's a lot more teams with 3 or 4 players out. So there definitely is a rash of injuries keeping players from playing the game. Now, the NBA has been a grueling 82-game season since the 67-68 season. Players back then used to routinely play 40 minutes plus on average. Today, however, it's a little different with additional playoff games, more travel, international play, and repercussions now, right, from the shortened seasons due to COVID-19. So we're seeing enough injuries NBA-wide for it to be a valid concern. Now, there's no easy answer, and I know that mine is not a popular opinion, and also one that franchise owners would likely veto in a second. That is to shorten the season. You do that by eliminating back-to-back games for all teams and schedule no more than 3 games for any team in any week. And that would limit the season to somewhere between 60 to 70 games. That's got to be the right approach. At the end of the day, that's going to cost franchise owners money. And we hear it all the time. Every trade season, it's a business. And this is a reminder of that. 82 games means more money in people's pockets. That is likely not going to change. But it is something that, I don't know, man, we got to take a good hard look at it. We cannot have so many players out over and over again. And it really impacts the seasons. Every time you talk about any team's potential, you preface it by saying, if they're healthy, if they're healthy. Wouldn't it be nice if we can play an entire NBA season with everybody mostly healthy? Then we see who the real champion is. I hope the NBA looks at it, but we'll see. That's it. Week number 6 of the 2024-25 NBA season is in the books. Join us again next week after week number 7 when we once again run it back.